All right. Hello. My name is Aisha Jordan. I'm Program Associate in Fiscal Sponsorship at Fractured Atlas. So before we get started, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me properly. You can just press yes or click yes in the little chat box there if you can hear me. Wonderful. Okay, great. And then the other thing I want to make sure is, can you see the screen that I have up there right now? It says Fractured Atlas, Fiscal Sponsorship Orientation for New Projects. If you can see that, also type yes. Okay, beautiful. So it's going to get started here. Again, my name is Aisha Jordan. I am a Program Associate in Fiscal Sponsorship. So for the next about 45 minutes, we will be talking about fiscal sponsorship as an orientation to it for new projects who've just been accepted. So before we get started, we'll just go into a little bit of information about us. One, over the past year, we have, oh, can you guys, did I lose visibility there? Can you still see my screen? I think I may have lost it. All right there, so you can still see, yes, yes. Okay. Are you seeing that? All right. Yes, you're seeing. All right. So I'm going to continue. If you can see the number there that just came up, type yes there. Right. So in the last 12 months, our fiscally sponsored projects have raised about $18,725,367. We have about 3,891 sponsored projects, all run by about 7 of our staff members. Okay, so I see you're not seeing it. Let me exit out of this and we will find a way to make it work. All right, bear with me while I fix the tech. All right, so we are back. Let me just double check here again. Are you able to see the number that is popping up on the screen? If you are able to see the number, just type yes in the question box there. Yes, yes, yes. Yay. Okay. So we're up and running. So that number there shows, like I said, in the last 12 months, our fiscally sponsored projects have raised this amount of money. Um, and the amount of sponsored project we've had for the past year is 3,891 projects. And all of this is run by, yes, as I said, just about 7 full-time staff members. So kind of to go into who those staff members are, right here, these are our staff members. You'll see me up there in the middle, circled in the red. That is me, Aisha. To the left of me, you'll see Nathan Zabidio. He's our program specialist in fiscal sponsorship. Below Nathan there, you'll see Diane DiBasella, who is our senior program director in fiscal sponsorship. Down below her, you'll see Teresa Hubbard. She is another program specialist with us. And just to the right of her, you'll see Lauren Lattimore. She is another program associate. Just above her there, you see Sabrina Cedeno, and she is our member associate. And who you don't see, who's just a recent addition to our team, is another member associate, Katarina Thompson. So one of the reasons we are able to do this work so streamlined is because we have an efficient, custom-built online tool system. That means a large portion of the program is automated, and there's a great deal of functionality at your own fingertips that allows you to control a large portion of the fundraising activities. And in this presentation today, we're going to go through kind of how you're able to do that fiscally sponsored with us, and give you some outline on some of our policies and procedures for doing that work. There will be a time at the end of the presentation to go over any questions you might have. So you can type questions in the box if you like as we go along, but I may get to it, may not, but do know that we will get to all questions at the end. All right, so in this section, once our board of directors approves your sponsored project, as many of you may have already been approved or are waiting for your approval, you will be able to see your online My Fiscal Sponsorship profile page. So once you log into your membership, you'll then see this page you see ahead of you, which is kind of the one we'll be going back to here and again throughout the presentation. Now, of course, there's no substitute for any hands-on learning, so we can't possibly cover everything in the presentation. So I really, really do encourage you to log on, click through a lot of these things, feel it for yourself, and really see what these kind of buttons and these tools actually can do. So one of the things that's important to mention before we kind of delve into that deeply is that Fractured Atlas, we make the delineation between earned income and contributed income. So earned income is more in terms of monies that you will make for either selling items or services that you provide, things like that. Those funds would go directly to you as the project. So let's say you're a musician and you sell a CD, any funds you make over that CD that is sold goes directly to you. Contributed revenue is what we consider would come in through Fractured Atlas. So that would be things like donations, grants, non-cash or in-kind donations, anything that's given without the idea of anything given in return. Yeah. So one of the things that is important to mention, we do accept projects now that do have investors. So there's a lot of film projects out there that might have investors. If you are one of those, there is an addendum that we would have you sign to kind of delineate the relationship between us and your investors. But please know, we do accept investors now. So accepting donations, we can process contributed revenue, as I said, in 3 different ways. And that first way is by credit or debit card. We can accept those right through your donor landing page, and we'll go into that in a minute. We can also accept check donations, and we'll go into that more in detail as well. And then we can also accept non-cash in-kind donations. And again, we'll go into each of these a little more in depth as we go forward. So right here, once you're fiscally sponsored, your donor landing page goes up automatically. So right here, this is kind of an example of your donor landing page. You can see you're able to give one image or one video along with the description at the bottom there. And to the right, you'll see the Donate Now button that is for all your donors. Now, donors can give on the site at this location any amount up to $20,000 per transaction. So let's say if you had a donor who really wanted to donate $40,000 by debit card, all they would have to do is give $20,000, wait a little bit, and then go on again and donate again. And we do suggest waiting about 5 minutes because at any time, if you do successive transactions, it can look like fraud to the donor's card and it could get shut off. So just letting you know they can do that. So again, we're taking over to the My Fiscal Sponsorship page. And again, we're going to go back to this periodically throughout the presentation. And on this page is where you can find a way to actually edit that donor online donor page. So you'll click there, you'll see online profile. Underneath there, you'll see current profile. And then you'll see edit profile as well. So if you want to make any changes to that profile, you click edit profile, you can make changes there. Please be aware that it is subject to Fractured Atlas staff review and approval before it goes live on the site. It does take about 1 to 2 business days for us to approve that, and then it goes up automatically and you will receive confirmation by email. And if there's any other questions you have about things that you need to put up, you can contact us by email at support@fracturedatlas.org. All right, so accepting check donations. When accepting check donations, the check should be made payable to Fractured Atlas. And now you're welcome to have your donors put the name of your project in the memo line, but it's not entirely necessary because we will ask for the donor to actually mail the check directly to you before getting it over to us, and we'll explain why. So donations are made out to Fractured Atlas and mailed directly to you as the project. And in that, we ask that you report the check donation online before sending to us. So right here, you'll see an example, again, on that My Fiscal Sponsorship page. Under the tab of donations and under checks, you'll see right there, report. It'll take you to an online donation report page that we need you to fill out before sending us the check. And that report page looks a lot like this. So in there, you're going to type in the first and last name of the donor, the address, and then below, you can't see in this, but you'll put in the check number and the amount, and if there's any non-tax deductible amount, which we could get into a little bit later as well. And once that is submitted, you'll then send that over to us, the check over to us for processing. Now, we can accept donations of any size by check, but for those of $1,000 or more, we do require one more piece of documentation, and that is the major gift letter. This is a letter that would need to be filled out, signed, and returned to us by your donor, and it looks like this. So right there, you'll see it kind of shows specifically the amount the donor is giving. That is, it is being given to Fractured Atlas for the purposes of, for example, this project here, and then is signed, dated, and with the donor name and address clearly printed. Now you can send those in to us directly with a check. If the donor sends it in with their check to you and it's been reported, you can send it in. Your donor can also fill that out, scan, and email it directly to us at support@fracturedatlas.org, or can also mail it in themselves. So one of the things that we want to emphasize as well is kind of donations that we cannot accept. And one of those donations is donations of cash. Unfortunately, we cannot accept donations of cash because it doesn't specifically show a paper trail between the donor and your project and the donative intent. The donative intent is important for us in our filing as well as yours. So you are still free to accept cash donations, but that would go directly to you, and you need to let your donors know that that is not tax deductible, and we wouldn't be sending a tax receipt for that. We also cannot accept donations of money orders, and it's for the same reason. There isn't enough of a direct link between the donor and us and the donation being made, and we do need that record for our auditors and to make sure that we're in compliance with our 501c3 regulations. And again, 501c3 nonprofit regulations. Okay, we can, however, accept donations of non-cash or in-kind donations. Now, these donations have to be something that's physical and tangible items that exist in the real world and that you can kind of touch with your hands, and that the ownership of it is fully donated over to the project. So let's get into that a little bit further. What do I mean by physically? So, for instance, we can only process these physical donations, meaning we can't accept donations having to do with time. So if someone is giving their services or providing volunteering their time, that isn't something that we could actually provide a tax receipt for because it isn't something physical in your possession. And that goes the same for rental space. So if someone is offering, 5 nights of rental space for your theater company, unfortunately, that isn't something that we can accept as well. The entire property would need to be given over to you as a sponsored project. The ownership would have to become yours. And this goes the same for airlines. So for airline miles, we can accept, and for airline tickets. For the tickets specifically, because in the way that it works is that the ticket would have to be given to specifically whoever is the 501c3, meaning if you got donated a ticket, then you'd be sending me to an awesome place and not anyone from your project, unfortunately. So next, with check donations, you'll also need to report the non-cash donations online on your My Fiscal sponsorship page. So you can actually download the another thing that you need is a non-cash donation letter. And you can actually download the non-cash donation letter online right here, as you can see, non-monetary property right under the donations. You can click report. Right there, you can report the non-cash donation, and then right there beside it, you can get the non-cash donation letter for your donor to fill out, which looks like this. So the non-cash donation letter is something that your donor would have to fill out, stating the value of the goods that they're giving, and then also dating and signing it and giving their name and address. This should be uploaded with the donation report when you make it, or can be sent in by fax, email, or mail if that's easier for you. So this right here is the report form for non-cash donations. It's pretty straightforward. You can give items. You can say what they are. You can say if you've received them. You would need to, this is very important, you do need to say whether they've been received or not, because that would affect the processing of the donation. And just also let us know how much it was for, very similar to the check donations. So for any non-cash donations valued of $250 or more, we do require a photograph of the donated item or items. So make sure that you take this photo right as you receive them, because a lot of the times people will be donated food, but then the food will be consumed, and then we do not have a picture of the food for us to process with the donation. So make sure if you get a donation of beer or wine that you make sure you take a picture of that beer and wine before you actually move forward with an event that you have. So with all the donations that we process for the purposes of our fiscally sponsored projects, we do deduct an administrative fee to cover the costs of running the program, as well as the credit card processing fees. So altogether, this fee is 7%. And it comes out of the donations that come in. So as soon as a donation comes in, the 7% comes out. And when you take a look at your available balance, you'll be able to see exactly what's available to you. Now, this 7% does go down for check donations. If you raise $150,000 or more over the lifetime of your fiscal sponsorship, so that's not in a year or anything, that's for the entire time that you're fiscally sponsored, the administrative fee goes down to 6%. At $500,000 or more, it goes down to 5%. And at $1 million or more, the fee does go down to 4%. And yes, we have had projects raise $1 million. So that's one incentive right there for getting, and specifically that's for check donations. All right, so right here again, we're back at your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. I mentioned your fund balance. So as you can see, you can click the info reports section and you'll see fund balance right there. The available fund balance and the fund balance can be different at times. Because of that, we do ask that all donations that come in for the purpose of your project, that they are held for 7 days in order to clear before they are made available to you to release. And this can also happen if a major gift letter is not received. The donation will be in your fund balance, but it would not be available to you until we receive that major gift letter. All right, so we need to take it back a little bit, slow down. So how do we actually move forward with processing donations when you actually have to get the donations? So we're going to actually talk a little bit about the ask and getting that donation. And this is often the very first hurdle that a lot of new arts projects and entrepreneurs encounter. Every day we talk to artists who are starting up and who experience the initial queasiness about actually asking people for money. And we encourage all of our fiscally sponsored projects to consider themselves in good company because all nonprofit artistic ventures in the United States require excuse me, philanthropic support to keep in operation. And that goes for places like the Metropolitan Opera, the Getty Museum in LA. They all need to ask for money. So we really kind of stress that it's not about begging, but you're considering it an offer. You're offering potential patrons an opportunity to get involved with something that's bigger than themselves. And with fiscal sponsorship, you're also offering them the tax deductibility as well, which then is very appealing to donors to give larger amounts. So as soon as you're fiscally sponsored for with us, we recommend that you start to send out appeal letters asking people to make a contribution and let them know that their donation will now be tax deductible. And some different ideas are an email blast, a snail mail campaign. That's something that works really well nowadays. That everyone's very technical. They get something in the mail. It's a new experience for them. A newsletter. You can put it on your website. You can also host a fundraising event, run a crowdfunding campaign. There's a lot of ways out there for you to get your name out and start asking for funds. And all of these strategies should be considered at some point during your larger fundraising strategy. So one of the ways that we kind of assist you in doing this is that we have some tools online. On your My Fiscal Sponsorship page, you'll see under fundraising templates the individual appeal letter. You can click on that and it gives you a document in which you can kind of tailor your own style to, but it does have a template that you can go from and use. And crafting a good letter is more than just plugging into a formula, but make sure that you really make it your own and that it fits specifically to you and appeals to your specific donors as well. But one of the most important things before sending out something like this, an appeal letter, we do ask that you send us a copy of it for review and approval first. Now, you can email your fundraising materials to support@fracturedatlas.org. And a good rule of thumb is that anytime you mention Fractured Atlas or promise patrons tax deductibility, that you should send it to us first before it goes out to your prospective donors. And we require this for a few reasons. One is that it's always in your best interest to have another pair of eyes take a look at what you've written. At some point, I know you've probably gone over it a million times and it could kind of look like mush. So it's really great to have a second eye look over it and kind of see some things that you may have missed. And we can also offer some tips and tools to potentially maximize the effectiveness of your fundraising materials. So we'll definitely provide feedback where it's appropriate. And we're also looking for you to correctly represent the relationship that's happening between us and your fiscally sponsored project within your materials. And that's why we have some standardized text. So this is kind of language that we actually require for all solicitation materials. This includes websites, appeal letters, crowdfunding campaigns, things like that. So right there, you can see an example of it. It is accessible through your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. It's also within the My Fiscal Sponsorship program manual that you receive as well. And it is totally fine to keep it at the bottom as fine print, but it does need to be included verbatim somewhere within those materials. So we're also looking to see when we're reviewing these documents what you're offering to your donors in exchange for your contribution. And now, for instance, we say this because there's a difference between advertising and corporate sponsorship. So a lot of people want to say, donate $20 and we'll put your ad in our program for our theater performance. That's something that we wouldn't be able to offer to our donors because it's considered selling ad space. So it gets kind of tricky, but when you're saying something like, if you donate to us, we'll put your logo in our program as appreciation, that's something that is allowed. And it's specifically about the idea of advertising. So if you're honestly just putting someone's name in the program for thanking them for giving, that's allowed. But if you are putting in, like, for instance, their ad to go buy, I don't know, soap from their laundromat, that's something that we wouldn't be able to put in there. And other things that we're looking for is if are you running a raffle? There are a lot of times where people want to say that you'll get a raffle ticket for this if you donate $50. That's actually something that Fractured Atlas can't be a part of because it is considered gambling. And gambling laws are actually set at the state level. And because we're a national company, we can't kind of adhere to all the different gambling laws in the different states that our projects are fiscally sponsored with. So it's kind of a good idea for us to kind of stay distant from that. So it's something that we don't allow our fiscally sponsored projects to do um, when with donations coming in through us. So whenever you do offer donors kind of goods and services in exchange for their contribution, this actually makes the donation partially tax deductible. So anything above and beyond the actual value of the goods and services being exchanged is tax deductible for your donors. So, for instance, let's say you wanted to um, have donations for a gala that you're having. If the gala normally would cost $50 for someone to attend and they donated 125, only $75 of that $125 donation would be tax deductible for them. And we also indicate that on their tax receipts. So it's really important to have that indicated there. So one of the other ways that a lot of project likes to fundraise is through crowdfunding partnerships. Now, the only one we have at this time is with Indiegogo. So you can set up an Indiegogo campaign directly connected to your fiscally sponsored project with Fractured Atlas so that when donations go into your Indiegogo, they will come in directly to Fractured Atlas and we will issue tax receipts for those donations. Now, it is important to, well, let me go in right here. And you'll see right here, this is kind of an example of a Indiegogo campaign through Fractured Atlas. You can actually set up the campaign directly through your My Fiscal sponsorship page. So one of the ways that you can tell that it is connected right here um, is that you see in partnership with there. They've recently changed this a little bit, so you don't always see that. But again, the better safe than sorry. You can always email us right away to make sure that it has been connected, that you're able to receive those donations properly. So the way that you can set up this Indiegogo is on your My Fiscal sponsorship page. Right there, you'll see the accessorize button. And right there, you'll see Indiegogo. You click on that, and then there's several different instructions that you can follow that will connect it to your fiscally sponsored project. So it is also important to mention that with Indiegogo campaigns, we take our 7% administrative fee. They actually take an additional 3% for their processing fee. So altogether, it's about 10% that's coming out of your donations through an Indiegogo campaign. All right, so there is another way that you can actually do a crowdfunding campaign, and it's actually directly through Fractured Atlas and your donor landing page. We have that page that we showed you before where you can put your picture, you can put an image, you can change the description, anything you like. You can also set up giving levels, which is very similar to Indiegogo's perks. So right on your My Fiscal sponsorship page under donations, you see giving levels, and you can set those up and offer kind of goods and services to your donors in exchange, again, indicating that non-deductible amount in there as well. So when you make those giving levels, your donors are now presented with these options on the actual donor landing page there. So you can see here the giving levels that have been set up here, $500 or more, partial student sponsor, and so on and so forth. And that is how your donors can give directly there. So one of the other ways that you can ask for funds is applying for grants. So fiscal sponsors can open the door to institutional funding, like from foundations or corporations. And as with approvals for your individual solicitations and crowdfunding campaigns, we want to be involved when you apply for grants at these sources as well. So before you start even looking for grants, we do have a grant eligibility requirement. We do require all grants to be reviewed, all projects to have raised $1,000 before seeking grant funding. And this is something that's actually been put into place because funders have contacted us asking us for our projects to have a donor base before actually seeking grant funding from them. So we want to make sure that we review all of your grant application materials before they are submitted to the grant. Then we ask for your application materials, a link to the guidelines and eligibility. And if it's an online application, we do ask for your login information so that we can log in and review it firsthand. And this review process, we ask you to submit those materials to support@fracturedatlas.org at least 10 business days before the due date of the grant. And this is because we do provide feedback. We do want to review it properly. We want to make sure you have enough time to make any necessary edits and things like that before that due date comes up approachingly. So lastly, let's say you are given that grant. Congratulations, you've gone to grant. We do follow up to make sure that any necessary reporting is given to the funder. A lot of times they ask for a final report on how the grant funds were used and the project that it went to. And we do follow up with you to make sure those necessary steps are being taken. Okay, so now that you've successfully solicited donations, you have patrons, you've gotten a grant, all those things, what's next? How do you actually access the donated funds that have been given to you? Well, first you'll need to send us info about a checking account so that we can probably link it to your fiscally sponsored project. So all fund releases are made through electronic fund transfer, or the EFT. You can actually access this form online, again at your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. You're going to click Fund Releases and right below Sign Up for Electronic Bank Transfers. So this is what the form actually looks like. We ask for your project name, we ask for your bank account holder name. This would need to be the same name that's either on any of your bank documents. So let's say you are the bank holder, but on the document it says your company name. Make sure that it says the company name as the account holder. So then we also ask that you submit it with a voided check or bank document that includes the routing number, the address of the account holder, and the bank account number. This way it authorizes us to make transfers to that specific bank account and link it properly. Yeah. Once you've done that and your EFT has been set up, you have your bank account information all ready to go, then you can fill out the request for funds. So on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page, right there under Fund Releases, you click Request Funds, and you go through our process of submitting a request for funds. And this is what the request looks like. So it'll show your total fund balance. Then you can click an expense category in the drop down, put the amount, and then also include notes at the bottom there just to say exactly for yourself and either for us what the expenses were. And in this, we do ask that you click as many categories as possible needed for one request. A lot of times people will make separate requests instead of clicking all the expenses necessary and continuing to use that drop down. And one of the most important things is be sure to pick an expense category as specific as possible. There is an other category there, but I will let you know we hardly ever let anyone use the other category. So if anything, I would make sure that you double check and see all the categories and see where it might fit, because we will follow up with you if you do select the other category. And another thing to mention is that we do require documentation for some of these fund releases. Now, documentation is mandatory for any fund release of $5,000 or more. For any fund release of $3,500 or less, it's by request from Fractured Atlas, and we can request it at any time. But do know that if you're requesting $5,000 or more, you would need to upload documentation. Now, this documentation can be receipts, invoices, contracts. It can even be screenshots of items that you're looking to buy, and you can upload it directly in the form when you're doing it online. Right there at the bottom, you'll see a section to upload documentation. All right. So when you applied for fiscal sponsorship, or if you were looking at the application, we do ask for you to provide a legal entity with a U.S. taxpayer ID. This is either an individual with a social security number or a business entity with an employer identification number or EIN. Now, we can work with any type of legal entity. It can be an individual sole proprietor, an S corporation, any kind of legal entity. We ask this because all the funds that are released to you from your fiscally sponsored project and from Fractured Atlas are the responsibility of the legal entity on file to report on their taxes. So we are a grantor to grantee relationship. So when funds are released to you, it will be as granted income to you. We do issue 1099s every January to individuals, partnerships, and LLCs showing the funds dispersed for the full calendar year in box 3 as grant income. So any corporations, though, are not actually issued 1099s, but you will still need to report the fractionless income on your 990. So this is not necessarily mean that you're going to have to pay taxes on the funds that were given to you. When the funds are released to you and requested for your specific project expenses, we do ask that you keep great documentation of your expenses, so that way you'll be able to offset the income on your taxes using those expenses paid for, and then hopefully will not need to owe when it comes filing time. We do recommend you seek out an accountant to consult when it comes that time in order to make sure that you are able to offset those costs, and then also possibly seeking out a bookkeeper, someone who can really keep a great record of your expenses. So it's really important to keep in mind that your project is a separate business entity from Fractured Atlas. And one of the great aspects of this is that you get to maintain complete ownership over all the work that you create. And it's also important to note that we do not grant you a nonprofit 501c3 status. Only the IRS can do that. So rather, we are kind of extending some of the benefits of our nonprofit status to you and for your project's activities. So to that extent, we're going to check in with you on a few things, primarily the use of our tax ID. So anytime anyone has asking you for tax ID of your fiscal sponsors, requiring 501c3 proof or anything like that, you must come to us first. It's, for instance, as if a friend just asked you for your social security number. You would want to know why. So in that same way, we ask you to send an email to support@fracturedatlas.org requesting this information and clearly detailing why this information is needed. And then we can be able to issue any kind of documentation to you or any sensitive information from Fractured Atlas. And also just to know, we are not able to help you set up a bank account using our EIN. Any accounts that are happening must be under your own name using your own tax ID. So please don't sign up for anything that requires a tax ID from Fractured Atlas in terms of setting a bank account, because we will not be able to provide that for you. We can, however, offer letters of support to you in order to receive nonprofit rates for certain things. This could be for space rental, a nonprofit rate, or anything like that. And all you would need to do is contact us at support@fracturedatlas.org in order to get that document allowing you to use that nonprofit rate. One of the things that we actually can't use it for is for when you want to do postage. Unfortunately, we can't offer bulk postage discount for that. And we also can't offer it sales tax exemption. And one of the reasons we can't offer the sales tax exemption is specifically because sales tax is regulated at the state level, and because we are a national company, those rates are something that we could not adhere to. It would only be really specific to New York, and we can only offer it to New York projects. And in order to be fair to all of our projects, we do not offer that option. So one of the first major things in our fiscal sponsorship policy to bring to your attention is our annual report. So for any fiscally fiscally sponsored project that has processed donations or requested fund releases in a given calendar year is required to submit the annual report. Now, the annual report is due on April 1st of every year, and we will send out 3 reminders throughout the year, letting you know that it is due. If an annual report is not received by April 1st, we will freeze your project. But it's very simple to unfreeze. We would just need you to submit the report and let us know, and we can unfreeze it right away. Now, the report is actually an online form that you can find on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. Right under Info and Reports, you'll see File, this respective year, annual report, and then you can click in there to start submitting that report. Now, the report looks a little something like this. It's entirely online, so you don't have to prepare any documents, and it has 2 major components. The first, we ask that you provide a brief narrative description of what you've accomplished within the previous calendar year. And this can be as detailed as you like or as not detailed as you like. And with the narrative, you provide a numeral impact for your work to show how many people were exposed to your work and how many artists have participated. We also ask for updated financials. So because we only process contributed revenue for your fiscally sponsored products, we are only aware of income and expenditures relating to the funds that we've handled. So this is an opportunity for you to input any information about funds that you've handled separately. So anything that earned income, or if you've got any cash donations or anything outside of Fractured Atlas, feel free to include it in this report. And then we can have it for our records as well. Also, if you've changed how any funds that were released to you were used, for instance, if you said you used it for space rental, but in the end you actually used it for contract labor artists, this is a chance for you to accurately put in how you ended up using your funds in the end. So the annual report is another way that we demonstrate discretion and control over funds raised through our programs and how they're used. But this is also a way for us to collect data about the artists and arts organizations that we serve so that we can better understand on our own impact as a nonprofit arts sector within the United States, and to more accurately provide you with data that's more complete to the picture of what our business is and what our sponsored projects are really able to do in their own communities. Great. So I'm going to open up for questions for a moment. I hope you've gotten a sense of a little bit how easy it is for fiscal sponsorship on your end and how much power kind of you have over your abilities with fiscal sponsorship and the online tools that we've made available to you. I would encourage you once again to thoroughly explore your My Fiscal Sponsorship page and our program manual for a more comprehensive overview of all of our program policies and procedures. And before we open up for questions, I'd like to quickly talk a little bit more about some of the other services that Fractured Atlas does provide. The first is Artfully. So Artfully is a ticket and patron tracking service offered to members of Fractured Atlas. I mean, the great thing about Artfully is that fiscally sponsored projects, donor information syncs automatically when you create an account with Artfully. Now, this allows you to track your donors, link your Artfully account with MailChimp to send out e-blasts, and also sell tickets to your events and track those who have attended. Another is spaces. So our wonderful marketplace, Space Finder, is actually a really comprehensive tool to find space for your artistic and other needs. So there's customizable search. So you can actually search by size of space, you can search by availability, you can search by price, you can search by type of space that's needed. And all of that, and all of the venues have synced calendars, so you can see availability of when you'll need it, and some of them even offer you to pay for the space directly through this site. So it's a great resource. It's actually one of my favorite tools of Fractured Atlas. And then lastly, we have our insurance program. Now, this allows you to receive your membership with Fractured Atlas allows you to receive quotes at the free community level. You can receive quotes for insurance. At the professional and organizational level, you can actually buy insurance for your artistic endeavors. So you can insure your art, people, and events. So just giving a little shout out to some of the images there that we use this in this program. And yeah, a little bit more about some of the other webinars that we have coming up. Feel free to check those out. So now I am going to open up to questions. I know we went over a lot, so feel free if you have any specific questions, go ahead and type them in that question box, and I can answer anything. All right, looks like we don't have many questions here. Again, if you have any other maybe you have questions that are not coming to mind at the moment, or is something that you might be a little too detailed for this time, you can send us an email at support@fracturedatlas.org with any questions that you might have. Um, and yes, oh, I have some. Great, wonderful. Go ahead and feel free to ask. Okay, we see right here. What is the option we didn't see? Do you mean is that for a specific service? We'll wait for the follow-up on that one. Do you help transition into profit. We don't actually assist with the application process for 501c3 nonprofit status. We have a blog actually that was an interview with an actual lawyer who actually talked about the process of applying for 501c3. So it does help a little bit to see that. And if anything, if you want a link to that, you can send us an email at support@fracturedatlas.org and we can send you a link to that blog. But unfortunately, no, we don't have a service to specifically walk you through the process of becoming a 501c3. Oh, you're talking about fund releases, right? So the option is other. So in the fund release expense drop down, you'll see several different fund release expense categories that you can choose, and one of those is other. But we very, very rarely accept other as an expense category when we're approving fund releases. A lot of the times, people will select other and they'll put in their costumes or supplies for costumes, and that itself has an expense category in there. So a lot of times when you think it might be other, take a second look and see where that category it might fit in that category, because we will follow up if an other category is chosen. And the only time that it really is kind of acceptable is a lot of times there'll be fees for incorporation. So if someone is looking to incorporate and there's a fee for application, that doesn't have a category on there, and we do accept that in other. Okay, so I see someone is saying that you have you help set up corporate sponsorships using travel incentives. Are you looking, if you're looking to be fiscally sponsored, that might be tough because I'm not quite sure what you would be using the funds for. But if you know of one that you would want to be a part of, uh, it would depend on that because you are offering a travel incentive. Um, So yeah, I would send an email to support@fracturedatlas.org, just giving us a little more information about that company and kind of how they operate, because it really depends on how they administer their sponsorship and what that travel looks like. If they're, donating something to you because of the sponsorship, in terms of like they're donating a train ticket or something. It really just depends on the specifics of it. Oh, great. Investors. Yeah. So I'll go back to that same kind of example I had with film. So if you're a film company and you have someone who wants to invest $100,000 in your company and they were expecting whatever certain percentage return, that is okay. We just ask you to sign a hybrid addendum. And in that addendum, it kind of clearly states that any investors are actually not allowed to also be donors, and that any funds you're getting from investors would need to be in a separate bank account. It just clearly delineates between the investor and donor, because we can't have any investor also being a we can't have any donor actually receiving any ownership or payback for the funds that they've given. So we create this addendum so that you'll be able to have those investors, but still have your fiscal sponsorship. A great question about being outside of the U.S. We have several projects that operate outside of the U.S., and that's fine if there's other grants and donors and things that do donate to our fiscally sponsored projects. If you specifically are based outside of the U.S., we do ask that you have a United States address and bank account in order for us to operate our processes through. And again, that could be tricky if you don't know anyone who lives here or anything like that, but we do require that there be a US bank account and US address linked to the project. But let's say you're doing your project in France and that's where you get most of your funding. That's fine. We would just need to make sure that all the donations coming in are made in US dollars. So anyone donating online who's donating from another country, it gets converted automatically online, and that's kind of the way that we prefer it. But if anyone is making like a check donation, they need to make sure that they convert it to US dollars before they are making that check donation. Should we open a bank account for donations only? Um, we do ask that you open a separate bank account. Again, it wouldn't technically be for donations. It would be for the funds that are being released from Fractured Atlas. So it would still be considered income for that legal entity. But it would be best that there be a separate account for that. And again, it can just be a personal checking account. It doesn't have to be a business checking account, but any way to delineate between funds that are coming from Fractured Atlas for the purposes of your project and from your own personal funds, we do suggest. If some artists involved or services hired are abroad, how can we learn to be tax report compatible? This seems like more of a question that you might need to ask a tax lawyer or accountant. They might have more information than that, or more accurate information for that kind of a question than I would. Because again, the only thing that you're responsible for on our end is funds that are released to you. So we don't actually pay anyone for you or anything like that. Funds get released to your bank account and then you pay those individuals as you see fit. So that you might want to talk to an accountant on how you would work that out with anyone being abroad or anything like that. And again, we release everything to a US bank account. So any kind of exchange rates for what you're paying for, that would be something that you work out on your own. Is Indiegogo the only option for crowdfunding? Yes, at this time, Indiegogo is our only partner for crowdfunding. We do have some works coming around the bend in the future for other ways of crowdfunding through Fractured Atlas. So please be on the lookout for that, probably in late fall. But at this time, Indiegogo is the only option. You are again free to do any kind of crowdfunding campaign on your own. Just again, those funds would go directly to you and they wouldn't be tax deductible for your donors. But feel free, if there's a crowdfunding platform that you enjoy best and that your donors are used to, you can go ahead and use that. You just wouldn't be able to mention Fractured Atlas and we wouldn't be sending any tax receipts. Some of our potential donors are not used to donating at all. Yeah, that can be the case at times. That's why for us it's really easy to send them to your donor landing page because they can use a debit or credit card right away. And when they do that, they actually get emailed a tax receipt from us automatically. So it kind of takes out the guesswork of how this works. They'll see automatically how much they donated. They can give that to their accountant and anything like that if they want to write it off in their um, donations or anything. And then also feel free to send them to any of our webinars if they are really interested in doing and are more interested in what Fractured Atlas is and how we work. They're free to attend any webinars as well. On my website, what is the correct way to set up donation option now being fiscally sponsored? That's a great question. So actually on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page, we have your donation link. So in there, you can embed a link on your website that takes your donors directly to your donor landing page with Fractured Atlas. And that'll be right there on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. If you click donations, you can see share and embed, and right there you click on that. It shows you all the different kind of buttons you can put on your website. And again, make sure you send us a link to your website before it goes live, or at least send us the text to make sure that we are able to approve it before use. Is there any literature you would recommend on how deductions actually work for them? Unfortunately, we don't have any physical literature on that end because taxes are so very specific to the person and the individual and kind of their income, their past tax filing and filing status and things like that. So we haven't been able to kind of put together any kind of document like that. We don't actually get to view the tax returns of our donors. That's private information for them, so we don't actually get to see in the end how they end up filing. But we do actually have a list of legal resources and accounting resources that you can actually go and ask an accountant to see what kind of return a donor might be getting or anything like that. And those accountants are actually ones that have worked with artists in the past. It's a list we compiled of accountants that work with artists, and they actually sometimes offer free consultations. So I would suggest taking a look at that. You can also access that on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page as well, under a tab that says Expert Help. And you can see the list there. If you're not fiscally sponsored, you can go ahead and send us an email at support@fracturedatlas.org and ask for those resources as well. Oh, about the donation link. So on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page, you'll click that tab that says donations, and then in there you'll see a link that says share and embed. And right there you'll have a link to all of the ways that you can put all the links you can put on your own website that bring your donors to the donor landing page. So yeah, it's under the donations tab, under share and embed, and then you'll have several options of different links that you can put on your website to direct people to your donor landing page. What did we need approved? There's several different things that you do need approved. If you have any donation solicitation materials, so appeal letters, um, websites. Let's say you're doing a Facebook post that's asking for donations. We need to see that ahead of time. Grants, any grant application, as I mentioned, we would need to see 10 business days before the due date. So basically, the good rule of thumb is any time that you're mentioning Fractured Atlas or mentioning tax deductibility, shoot us an email first, just to be safe, and then we can send approval for anything like that. Could you suggest an arts grants database where we can learn about compatible grants? Yeah, there's several different ones. The best one that we use and that I think works really, really well, is very comprehensive, is the Foundation Center. And I believe it's just the foundationcenter.org. And you can check out kind of their resources there. They actually have on-site locations in different places across the country as well, where you can go in and use their specific computers to access certain parts of their site that are only available to members. these locations allow you to do that. A lot of them are libraries, but you can actually search for that on their site as well. That's the Foundation Center. There's also the New York Foundation for the Arts, NIFA. They have a resource where you can search for grants as well. And as a fiscally sponsored project with us, you do have access to a grant toolkit. And with that grant toolkit, we offer you tips and tools for researching for grants, finding grantors, finding funders, how you apply for grants, and then also a comprehensive list of local and national grants that are specific to your project. Again, and that's only for fiscally sponsored projects, but I do recommend taking part in that. Do we have a counterpart in Canada? We don't have a counterpart in Canada, but we do have sponsored projects that are from Canada, and a lot of our donors are from Canada. There is Space Finder happening in Canada as well. So if you do have a project in Canada, they can be fiscally sponsored by us. Again, it is tough because we do need that U.S. bank account and a U.S. address, but we do have projects in Canada. On Indiegogo, are we using our own network or will we have access to more possible donors? With Indiegogo, it is your own network. We don't actually kind of solicit donations for you. It would be your own network doing that. Um, and Indiegogo does have a certain level of visibility when it comes to crowdfunding. But again, yeah, it would be your own constituents um, or your prospective donors and those who you know. All right. Well, if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to send us an email at support@fracturedatlas.org. We do try to get back to try to respond to all inquiries within 1 business day, so you can receive an answer right away. Um, yeah, I see one more question. Do you have any resources to help find other donors? Um, Unfortunately, we don't have like a list of places to search um, for donors. There are those other resources out there, like I said, the Foundation Center and things like that. But we do have catered webinars to specific things like how do you find individual donors, things like that. So I would recommend taking a look at some of the other, and again, I have it up on the screen as well for corporate grants, building a budget, monthly giving, things like that, overview of individual donors and online campaigns, and kind of how to successfully start doing your ask. Yeah, so the last thing I said for already fiscally sponsored projects, the only thing that I will mention for the grants toolkit, it's a grant toolkit, is that we do still hold up to the $1,000 eligibility requirement when it comes to the grant toolkit. Because we ask for you to raise that $1,000 before seeking grant funding, we will look that you have met that before giving out the grant toolkit. But if you have raised $1,000 before actually being fiscally sponsored at Fractured Atlas, all we would need is proof of that. So either a link to an old crowdfunding campaign, PayPal transaction IDs, or letters from donors stating that they gave and were not received any goods or services in return. We can waive that grant eligibility requirement, and then we'll be able to issue a grant toolkit to you. All we would need is an email from you stating your geographic region and your discipline, and within 5 to 10 business days, we will assemble that grant toolkit for you. All right. Again, please check out some of our other webinars. We have another one coming tomorrow on grants, proposals and grants, and that's actually happening at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and another one the next day. So definitely look out on our site on fracturedatlas.org. You can click programs and services under fiscal sponsorship. You can click about the program, see all the webinars we have coming up. And thank you again for coming. You will receive a copy of this presentation. So if you weren't able to take any notes as quickly as you had wanted, we will send that out to you in an email in the next coming days. So look out for the video. Again, thank you all so much, and you have a wonderful evening.